The part 2 of a series I'm doing on Jehovah's Witnesses and how they really fit the BITE model. Today we're in I for information control. If you don't know, Jehovah's Witnesses have a pretty tight grip on their members when it comes to information control. And we're going to go down this list, and of course, in all transparency, many of the points that I'm getting here are from freedomofmind.com, but we're going to see how it relates to actual, Jehovah's Witness beliefs and how the members, act and how they're shown in the religion and truth, how to behave. So we're going to see how they control information. So one of the points is deception, deliberately withholding information, distorting information to make it more acceptable, and systematically lying to cult members. We know that they do withhold information. Many court cases have been resolved, and a lot of the court cases are solved out of court. They pay people off. They have all these things, these resources, and they're not transparent. They never tell the members that the donations that the members are sending to the branch, to the hall, and the funds that is sent and that's being used for all this. Like, for example, what's happening in Australia, or what happened in Australia with the Australian Royal Commission a few years back. How many millions of dollars the organization had used for that. And not just that, but also these local cases, like it was happening in Pennsylvania and other states, California. This is not cheap. It's expensive to have lawyers that are fancy lawyers. And look into some of these lawyers that they're using. One in particular, I can't remember. It's and they even did an interview on jw.org. Very iffy. If you Google the lawyers, this is a guy who's helped the Catholics and other high control religions, other religions. So it's kind of iffy. So they minimize or discourage access to non-cult sources for information, including internet, TV, radio, books, articles, newspapers, magazines, other media, which is critical information, former members, and they keep members busy so they don't have time to think and investigate. Very true. When I was a witness, I was nervous and scared. I had guilt to investigate all this information because I was taught that this information, if it was negative against the organization, then it was false and apostate. They don't care about the context. They don't care if it's a legitimate court case and the organization did people dirty. They don't care if it's some YouTuber. From either end of the spectrum, it could be a completely unbiased source, logical and factual, or it could be someone's opinion, like what I say oftentimes, like in these videos. It doesn't matter. All that information, anything what they would consider as apostate, is bad. Doesn't matter the context. And just to cement this point, David Splain has a talk, which I'm going to play a few seconds of, called Put a Hard Fight for the Faith. And you can look this up on jw.org and listen to this scenario.
We receive letters at times from brothers and sisters who are troubled by something they saw on a web page. An accusation, a rumor about the society or about the organization. And the problem is, they had no idea that apostates were behind it.
You see, so this is giving this fictitious scenario where, there's some brother who's come across something that's talking negatively against the organization, and he's saying that it's coming from apostates. Well, what if this is a news article from like your local channel? What if this is literally Jehovah's Witnesses' own magazine that people are showing and putting into the limelight? Like, there's so many things that are unbiased and are completely should be reasoned and seen by witnesses so they know what they're getting into. And look at what he says.
It's tricky because the apostates don't advertise you are now on an apostate webpage. They often pose as sincere witnesses who just have questions or concerns. And some who aren't really apostates can cause just as much trouble as the apostates do by their negative talk and criticism. Brothers, we need to be on the alert. Questions. What did you think of last month's...
So, essentially, all information that talks negatively about the organization, the Jehovah's Witness organization, is apostate. Doesn't matter. And even if it's coming from a brother, like he said, with actual concerns, you're supposed to be somewhat, suspicious of this brother. Like, what are their intentions? He's even said someone who in the organization can do more harm than someone who's outside of the organization. That's because people in the organization are discouraged to talk from people outside of it. So if there's a brother who's talking apostate things, like has doubts or has, is looking information, and they see these things that are legitimate concerns, and they bring it up, well, then that brother who's bringing the stuff up, not only are they going to be shunned somewhat, witnesses will think that they're spiritually weak, and they will all part ways from them. Like, witnesses won't be like inviting them to get-togethers. They won't be talking to them too much at the hall. Maybe they're kind of in a corner. They're ostracized. And these are things that witnesses are not transparent about. If you go door to door, if a witness goes door to door, they will never tell you a lot of the things that happens in the organization because they don't know. So if a door-to-door salesman knocked on your door and sold you a product, and the product you believe, like you believe it's all good, and it's all hunky-dory, it's perfect, but then later you see as all these faults and all these things that salesman didn't tell you about. But the salesman has the owner of the product, he knows all the faults, but the salesman didn't know. But you as a consumer, now you've already consumed that, you're using that product, and it's too late because you've already signed a contract. Well, that's what witnesses are doing. They're going door to door preaching this version of Christianity that is faulty, that has all these issues legally, that has all these issues with their doctrines. They have all these issues with the shunning and CSA allegations and so many problems with their history, and they're not transparent about it. When they show in their documentaries the history in action, they're not actually showing what happened. They show their version of what happened. If you look into it and research what actually Charles Taze Russell believed in the pyramidology and Joseph Rutherford and why he implemented the no beards and how he was a drunk and Beth Sarim and all these things that the witnesses have no clue about because they're discouraged, how could they go door to door and preach their Christianity and try to convert people if they themselves don't know the full facts, and the facts that they do know are bad and wrong? They're a bad door-to-door salesman. And, that's just something that I've come to realize within the past year or so, is that witnesses are like door-to-door salesmen. They really are. They have the same tactics. Anyways, interesting. Witnesses don't know all the information, and they're discouraged from seeking out, even if it's factual. Let's keep going. They compartmentalize information from into outsider versus insider doctrines. It's true. There's the Elders book called Shepherd the Flock. Can any old witness access that? No, you have to be an elder or above. So think about it. I, as a human, an imperfect human, God-fearing, can read the Bible, which is directly from God, but I can't read these words and about the organization and their rules that are made by men. How does that work? Okay, explain that to me. Interesting. So they encourage spying on other members, which is something they very much do. They'll say if you know someone's sinning and you don't bring it to the elders, then you're also culpable of that sin, blood guilt, all that. They use extensive use of cult-generated information and propaganda, including newsletters, magazines, journals, audio tapes, videotapes, YouTube, movies, videos, other media. Very, very true. Witnesses are so known for their media empire. They are building these things in New York and Australia, Lord knows what, all these, media complexes. I thought the end was going to happen. I thought that I shouldn't go to college because, we're in the last days of the last days, surely before the final day, part of the last day of the last days. Am I not in the last days? Why are you guys building complexes using donated funds from brothers when the end is right around the corner? Shouldn't you get prepared? Where's the urgency? They also use unethical use of confession and withhold forgiveness or absolution. Very true. We know that witnesses, for the whole disfellowshipping and, reproval process, they require confessions or someone to be who had witnessed that person sinning. So many ways that witnesses withhold information. They control information. As an outsider, think about this. If you're unwilling to buy even a cell phone without looking at the reviews, shouldn't you do the same for when it comes to your beliefs and what you're going to dedicate your life to?